Good afternoon and welcome to Chris 180's Lunchtime Live Series. I'm Chandra Luckett, Chief Marketing Officer, and we're thrilled that you've chosen to spend your lunch break with us again this month. Doom scrolling on social media before bed, binge watching that same classic show 5 times, and even the glass of wine after a hard day of work are all ways we use to escape our reality and to take a break from life. But how do you know when that habit turns into something bigger and something that may be a challenge you need to talk about? Today, our clinical experts are here to discuss ways we can cope during this pandemic that we are still very much in and move forward as we come up with new ways to process our feelings, emotions, and stress. Our experts today joining us are Rob Collins, lead trainer and operations manager of the Chris Training Institute, and Chris Haider-Bardill, who is the project manager for our HERO project, which works with families who have experienced opioid use. Gentlemen, take it away. And everyone, remember that you can post your comments and questions in our live chat to be answered live by our experts. Chris?
Thank you so much. So what is escapism?
I don't know. Why don't you tell us?
Well, I think probably the easiest way for me to start is to remind everybody that we all need to take breaks. And that's perfectly fine, necessary, adaptable.
Yeah.
Escapism is where it can go a little too far. Typically, escapism is going to be that diversion away from some of the boring parts of life. A lot of times it's going to involve entertainment. A lot of times it's going to involve, in this day and age, digital entertainment.
Yeah.
And fantasy.
Yeah.
So we have a lot that we can unpack with this because of our amazing clinical expertise.
Yeah, I think a lot about, because there are a bunch of different ways for us to escape, but I think what are the types of things that we are escaping? I think we are escaping our emotions. If we're feeling sad, we're feeling stressed out, we would try to get away from it. If we're stressed out from work, we're stressed out from our family, stressed out from the news, stressed out from COVID. There's so many things that are just kind of bombarding us on a daily basis. And sometimes we just have had enough and we have to get away from it.
I absolutely agree. I think the key word that I heard over and over again is stressed.
Yes.
And I know when I am stressed, I will take a break. And it may be just a quick break to get up from my desk, to move around, to get a little bit of a different scenery. I may jump onto my phone and see what's going on in the world. And again, these for me are just breaks.
Yeah, and you're right. And it's so interesting because I think that a lot of us have, this humongous, incredible computer on our phone with so much information and so much fascinating things to look at. They're colorful, they're bright, they're loud, they're exciting, and we just kind of just spend hours on this thing. And I think I myself, I've stayed up way too late just scrolling through just garbage on my phone. And what happens after staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning and I need to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning?
I'm not going to lie. I have had that experience as well. Doom scrolling it's a part of us. And I think for the generation that I am who didn't grow up with a phone, this is something that can be very hard to just put aside.
Yeah.
Because there is always going to be more information. There's always going to be something to help distract. But we are getting into a bit of a problem area when we're doing this at night, right before bed.
Yeah.
We are messing up our sleep hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
We're messing up our just end of the day habits. And like you said, if I'm doing this until 2 a.m. and I got to be up at 4 or 5, I'm not going to be my best at the next day.
Yeah, that's where you get the bags under your eyes, and you got to start putting on makeup every morning just to look like you're ready for work.
Sometimes
I'm ready. I'm ready for it. Yeah, I think at the end of the day is that sometimes we come home from work and there's the dishes are piling up in the kitchen. And, the kids have to help with their homework, and you want to sit down. You want to sit down and watch the game, watch a Netflix show. And I think what happens is those dishes still stay in the kitchen. They stay there. The vacuuming doesn't get done. The conversations that you and your spouse would have, conversations with your kids, your friends, your family, these things kind of get set aside for us to really focus on catching up on Netflix and catching up on the latest dance craze on TikTok. So those things stay there and they start causing problems.
Well, it sounds like there's definitely a difference between those times where we take a break and it actually recharges us.
Yeah.
We can go back to what we were doing, or we can start something new, or we can even maybe do something that we were doing better. There's a difference with recharging and with escapism, where we're just kind of leaving stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're avoiding what we should be doing, or even just something else that we could be doing.
Yeah, so it sounds like there really is two different ways to look at this, because I think, if we're, playing or watching Netflix until 2:00 in the morning, we're putting aside all that stuff. That's one way to escape. But I think there's also, there's like a runner's high. You can go for a run, you can go for a bike, you can play a game, with your family and your friends where you're connecting and attuning and attaching with each other. And I think that's the kind of idea where, time flies when you're having fun, because that really is that kind of escapist idea, is that you've escaped, the constraints of time, and you've had a good time, and you've almost kind of separated from your body.
So in that case, we started out with this definition that sounded like escapism, and even when you just hear the word escapism, you may think it's all going to be bad.
Right.
But you can have an escapism that is real growth.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, as you're just talking about that, I see a family working out all the puzzles in an escape room and building their relationship, building their own cognitive faculties, just building a fun time.
Yeah.
And they did grow. But all an escape room is just, depending on how you want to look at it,
Sure.
a waste of time.
Yeah.
But it can be really fun.
I'm wondering if we should open up an escape room called Escapism. You're escaping from it. I love that idea that you can participate in something like that together, and you are almost taking a break from the world's problems, but you're also connecting and attuning with each other, and you're building relationships. So, in that one sense, you're building something, but there may also be things that you're putting aside, and I think that's okay for a time being.
And I do think that is kind of what we're moving ourselves and our viewers to, is really this idea that it's not just one or the other, that there is truly a spectrum of how we deal with stress. There will be stress.
Mm-hmm.
That I know, that I can guarantee. Other things, might not be so sure about.
Yeah.
But there will be stress. And so how we deal with that really does matter. It's going to be one of the biggest parts of how we grow ourselves, how we grow our kids,
Sure.
and how we even grow our families and our communities.
Yeah. We had a question.
Yes. So here's a question. It says, is simply decreasing screen time an effective way to prevent escapism or unhealthy escapism?
That's a good point. And I think we were talking about this earlier about
Mm-hmm.
screen time and escapism. And I think, at the end of the day, is that screen time does not, I don't think, I'm not sure what Chris thinks, but I don't think screen time definitely correlates to an escapism, because at the end of the day is that you can sign up for masterclass where you can learn about all these incredible things. You can learn about, how to cook from Gordon Ramsay. You can learn about writing from incredible authors. You can learn and watch YouTube where you're expanding your mind. So it's not necessarily shutting it off, because every time that I have something wrong with my house, I go to YouTube and I just kind of get lost in that, and I'm learning incredible skills. So I think it really is up to us, and I think even our generation, because as we start raising children in this digital age, we really need to strike a balance and really have a sharp understanding of what screen time is, and is it escapist, is it relationship building, or is it kind of kind of a combination of the two?
Well, and I would say I feel like I agree, and will add the answer to the question of, well, it depends. And I really do think that's part of what Rob is alluding to, is it depends on what the screen time is doing. And I do think that because I have young kids, that measuring screen time is important. I don't want to give them complete full access to every screen with access to every ounce of information on this planet. But I do want to be aware of what they're using the screens for, what they're getting out of it. And again, are they growing? Are they doing something that is really expansive? Are they hopefully enjoying it? Or are they just using it to push the troubles away, to ignore what's out there in the real world.
Right. Yeah, and I think, anytime that we talk about trauma-informed care, is I think about the phrase, in what environment is this behavior successful? And I think that this is really to look at the function of this behavior and really think about what purpose does this serve? Because it doesn't just come out of thin air. This definitely has something to do. And I think a lot of times we see a spike in escapism from teenagers because there's so much stress. There's so many difficult things in the news, so many difficult things in social justice. There's so many hard things for us to hear about. And so at the end of the day is that during COVID, during a pandemic, we can't go to the same places that we used to. We can't go and meet our friends. We can't have parties. We can't have gatherings. We can't even have daggone funerals. And so we really have to rely on these typically digital forms of media that do escape us and force us to kind of not really think about it.
Well, and I think talking about the challenges that teenagers go through just in general, it's tough to be a teenager in any era. We've added a pandemic onto the teenage experience now. We've added the absence of those other resources that they had to go out to just have a change of scenery, to see friends in real life. And so the potential for digital escapism is absolutely there and can be magnified with teenagers. I mean, these are young and growing brains that are still figuring out how the world works. So what's getting put into those brains is going to start to wire them for the future. And so this is something, being a parent, I look towards, but I don't necessarily come out with a solid, here is absolutely what the answer has to be, because with so many things in my world and parenting, and even with this topic, it depends.
Right. I think too, it's interesting because when I think about growing up, I grew up and my parents were like, don't sit too close to the screen. And now every single day we're sitting close to Zoom screens and phone screens. You're going to go blind. And so it's important to think about like what the future, what are our kids' futures going to look like? What are their lives as adults going to look like? And I really think, do you think screen time is going to go away? Do you think that screens are going to get closer? Or are they going to get further away? Are they going to get bigger? And at the end of the day is that we think about the screen time with the kids because they're doing Zoom calls all the time. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I think that we just have to educate ourselves and learn about it because it sounds like you have a really solid understanding for your kids is what types of things they're getting into. What do they mean? What do they mean to the kids? What function do they serve? Are they connecting? Are they attuning and attaching to each other?
Well, I will say I try. And I have younger kids, so it may be a little bit more easy to do rather than when they get to that teenage years. It looks like we did have a question though.
Yeah, so this one's from a parent, and they ask if you have any tips or suggestions for working with your kids on screen time as they use it to escape over the summer break.
Ooh, that is a great question. I feel like I want to ask so many questions back to that. It will, unfortunately or fortunately, come back to there's a lot of it depends in there. But I do think that actively communicating with your kid, with your teenager, especially during the summer months, is going to be probably your biggest foundational tool here, because that's the way that you learn what's going on. When the child or the teenager feels comfortable and safe enough that they can talk to you about what they are actually using screen time for, or what they may be using other escapisms for, that's when you have the potential to really connect, to really be the parent that you want to be, rather than what I know we all do and is necessary, but we try to plan it out where it's not going to be a problem later on. Sometimes we can do that, but I think with the summer months coming, with all of the complexities that we're going to be dealing with this new phase of the pandemic, honest and hopefully open communication with your kids and your teenagers about what's going on, what are they doing, how are they feeling, is going to be your best ally to make sure that screen time and other forms of escapism aren't coming to play.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really incredible devices out there that you can actually connect to your Wi-Fi, and you can actually limit certain devices. You can limit certain websites. You can even limit certain times, like bedtime, like once you get to like 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock, that the internet for that device gets shut off. You can also add and give screen time. So you could be at work and somebody said, I got 100 on my test. So you can be like, boop, 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 and give screen time to your kiddo, and you're not even there. And so I think it's important to do your research and figure out which one of those products would work best for you. And so a combination of talking to your kids and then using technology to kind of support and build and teach them these lessons that they will be using as an adult, because that's essentially what we're doing, is we're preparing them for adulthood.
So we got another question on Facebook. Natasha asks, can escapism be a trauma response?
Yeah.
See, I have so many answers to that will go into it depends. That one's, I think, a much easier answer.
Yeah, I would say 100%. I think that the classic trauma responses are fight, flight, and freeze. And typically, once again, I would say, in what environment is this behavior successful? And if you are in a place where you need to freeze and you need to dissociate and you need to kind of check out to protect yourself, if you're going through a lot of things and you need to go to work, you're gonna need to check out. You're gonna need to put that stuff away until you go to work, and then you come home and then you can open that box again. So, it is a trauma response, but it's also an adaptation that you have used to survive in some other place. So it's really important that we validate that and support that and celebrate that as a survival tactic rather than a weakness.
So Rob, I really want to kind of hold on something that you said there, which is in what space or in what environment is this adaptive? And that goes back to so much of what we do here at Chris 180, so much of the trauma-informed care that we provide. And I really think that even in the best of times, having a routine or a regular check-in with yourself to look at, what am I doing to take a break? And are any of those things getting a little bit too much? Am I using any of those things to withdraw from the world? And again, with our kids and young adults, this is vitally important in the community of parents, of family, of community leaders is not quite the word I wanted, but I'm going to go with teachers and all the rest of the village that is around these kids are part of what we use to check in. And I use part of this to just remind myself that having that regular check-in is great. But if I'm not using my community, if I'm not connecting with my community, then I'm not going to be doing the best that I can.
Right.
And the wonderful thing, I actually like being a part of the Chris 180 community, is I get a professional community. I get a professional community of helpers. And I know that there is space where those helpers are providing their help for those in need.
Yeah.
And I love being a part of that. But I do think that that's part of what can pull this full circle into, we're all going to take breaks.
Yeah.
But are we trying to escape the world? And then what do we do about it? There are helpers.
Yeah, I think too, it's interesting because it could be a trauma response, but also I think something to keep in mind is that it's important to almost take an inventory of the things that you're experiencing, the things that are kind of causing you stress. And if you have multiple things that are causing you stress, and you spend most of your time avoiding those things, they're going to catch up to you. They're going to catch up to you, and they're going to cause you problems in the future. And I think, one of the things that we've talked about before is like, when is it time to seek help? And I think once you have a significant amount of those things that you were avoiding, that may be a really good time to seek help, to seek a therapist, behavior specialist, psychiatrist, a spiritual leader, family surrounding systems, any of that.
And hopefully you can hear from your community too, because you may not see it, but someone around you may. And hopefully you can hear them and reach out for that help, or get the help to reach out to the help.
Yeah.
Looks like we've got one more question. We are doing great with our questions today.
Yes, this one comes from Jane. She says, do you have any tips for finding the motivation to engage in things that will nourish us instead of digital junk when someone feels drained and like they just don't have the energy to do anything else?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one and a hard one.
You want to take a shot at it first, or you want to?
I will try.
Hit it.
I will try. So I think the motivation to look for something that will improve us, something that will help us grow, is great. And I will fully acknowledge how difficult it is. I know in my life, just putting the time together for work, for my family, me is the third on that list. And then somewhere in there, I'm trying to figure out where can I grow. So I really think that the motivation piece there is looking at where are you in terms of your own motivation? Because my motivation to do something may not be there, but my motivation to look for something may be there. And so being, I think, gentle with yourself in terms of, you know what, I may not be at the finish line. I may not even see the finish line, but I can at least start looking around for what might not be junk to me. Maybe it's a new hobby. Maybe it's a hobby I put down. Maybe it's just talking with somebody who I do like to talk with, but doing that a little bit more. All of these can be at the starting block or a little bit farther on, but they don't have to be that end of I am motivated, I am finishing this project, because in so many things, I remind myself, this life, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
I love it. Yeah, it is a journey. I think this whole idea of you don't just wake up one day. I think a lot of times we talk about like tomorrow, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow, the next day, I'm going to be the one.
Definitely the next tomorrow.
There is a lot of this idea of thinking about how you see yourself, and a lot of our own grief and our anxiety and our depressions come from the distance between who we are and how we see ourselves and who we see in the mirror and the things that we do on a daily basis. But I think in order to kind of cope with this process, because this is at the end of the day, is that how do we deal with this? Because we've kind of built in these rituals and routines, escapism on a daily basis. We come home, we cook dinner, we order out, we watch TV, we go to bed, right? So most of our day is just completely gone. And the enemy of escapism, I would argue, is mindfulness. I would argue that it is 100% being mindful of the things and the choices that you make. Oftentimes when we kind of avoid mindfulness, we start making decisions that, rely on cravings and instinct and just instant gratification. But if we think for a second, when we want to be the person that we want to, we need to take a moment, take a second, move a little bit slower, take a deep breath, and really think about who is the person that you want to be today? Who's the person that you want to be tomorrow? And what does it look like? If it's, if I, want to be able to play the guitar instead of watch Netflix every day. Take a moment and think about what it feels like to play guitar. What does it feel like to run a marathon? What does it feel like to, be able to cook a 4-course meal? And so just take some time and smooth is fast, fast is smooth anytime that you're trying to grow.
Rob, I smile so much because I have a very special place in my head and my heart for mindfulness. So I love to hear it mentioned. I love to hear all the different ways that it can really be experienced and brought out. And at the same time, I remind myself that I'm going to have times where I'm not mindful, where I am rushing through, where I've actually found that rather than trying to think about my life as a balance, I'm starting to think more of my life as a sway, of kind of a pendulum that goes back and forth. And I do a lot of things to make sure that pendulum doesn't go too far to one side or the other, because I feel like that's probably going to be where I get into some trouble.
Right.
So if I can kind of hold that sway in the relatively good parts, I'm going to be doing really great with my life. But it's also going to mean that some days I'm sitting washing the dishes, I'm very mindful, I'm paying attention to the touch, to the feel, to the sounds. And other days I'm just throwing the dishes into the dishwasher because they are bugging me and they have been dirty and they've been in the sink for a week and I just want to get rid of them.
Yeah.
So I really do think that When we cope with this, we, again, have to be gentle with ourselves of, you know what, today might not be a good day for me being mindful.
Yeah.
I may have done a lot of escapism, but if I can identify that, then I've got the opportunity to make a change for that the next time, and the next time can be tomorrow.
Yeah, it sounds like I need to be mindful of myself, and maybe I need to be kinder to myself when I'm doing that kind of stuff.
We need to be mindful of being mindful all the time.
We need to team up on that. So let's kind of focus in on when we need to get help. Like, what does it look like? How does it look like inside of yourself? And then what does it look like when you're looking at someone else? When would somebody else need help? And then when would I need help?
Gotcha. Well, I think there's probably a lot of answers, and there's probably as many answers to that as there are people.
Sure.
But we can probably come up with some typicals or some commons. When I look at myself, I start to think about, okay, when am I using escape too much? When am I actively avoiding things? Procrastination is not unfamiliar to me. It's happened a time or two. And I plan for that. I put some things in place where maybe there's a due date for this. I'm going to tell myself the due date is a couple days before. That gives me a little bit of wiggle room.
Sure.
So if I have a bad day or I procrastinated, then I've still got time. But when I check in with myself, I start to look at, when am I avoiding the things in my life that I need to do?
Right.
When am I not shaving? When am I not taking a shower? That one's going to be a little different in the pandemic, because we've had so many Zoom meetings that, you can't smell me. So I can look nice, I may not smell the best.
Right.
But when we really do think about what is our coping strategy or our escapism potentially taking away from us,
Right.
that's when we start to think, maybe I do need to get help.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, what could somebody else who is outside of you start to see? That I've got some ideas on, but I'm really curious what you might think.
Yeah, I think about it a lot. I think about one thing, it's kind of like the function of the behavior. I often think about maladaptive behaviors, and it typically occurs when you have a dip in your mood. When you feel bad, what do? If you feel stressed and sad and angry, and then you seek out escapism, that anxiety and that sadness and that guilt and whatever the things that you're feeling, they stack up and they compound, and they don't go away. And so then at the end of the day is that you have to work even harder, and they stack up and they stack up and they stack up, and it compounds. And a lot of times people will have panic attacks.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have panic attacks, and they won't be able, they'll kind of be foggy and unclear at work. They'll feel overwhelmed. They'll have shortness of breath, a lot of the times they may look absolutely exhausted for somebody that has really dissociated consistently, and it really escaped a lot of reality. Are they taking care of themselves? Are they checking these boxes? Do they have the things that they need to do? Are they doing the adulting things, that we've talked about? And if they're not, I think it's really important for someone to seek help and to really pursue the function of that behavior.
Well, and I would say, I think one last thing to your point is, what happens when I'm not able to use my coping strategy, to use my escapism?
Yeah.
Do I just go to something else? Well, that's adaptable.
Right.
I may be doing all right. Do I melt down? I may not be doing so all right then. And meltdowns are things other people can see.
Right.
And if the internet goes out and I can't handle it, which some of us with teenagers, it's not me yet, but some of those with teenagers may have that experience.
Sure.
Teenagers are a wonderful and unique animal, but we really do want to see when our coping strategies aren't available. What do we do? Can we flex? Or, I do tell my kids a lot, are you being a popsicle stick or a pipe cleaner?
Okay.
Because the pipe cleaner can flex.
Sure.
But if you're a popsicle stick, well, you're stuck. And if you try to flex, crack.
Yeah. I think sometimes we hide from our own escapism. I like it. Did you have a question?
One last question,
Okay,
and it's a hard one, and
Uh-oh.
you all are going to give me a short answer.
I like it.
How can we build lives we don't have to escape from?
Ooh, wow. Well, a short answer, my best short answer for that is, I think, writing it down, being strategic about it, having a vision board, drawing and having pictures of the things that you would like to be the things that you would like to achieve, and really building in those strategies. Because if you look in the mirror and you see the person that you want to be, there's no reason to escape. You have achieved what you're looking for, and you can live comfortably in your own shoes.
Rob, I love your answer, and I'm going to take it to an entirely different place.
Please do.
I would ask the question, can we really create a life where we don't escape at all? And I do like asking questions like that, because I think in part, it does give us that space that we're not perfect, that we can have a bad day, we can be unfulfilled for a time in our lives. But if we're actively seeking that, then ultimately the way our sway is working out, our sway is doing pretty good. We're not staying on one side or the other too long, and we're not just stuck at the very top or bottom. So I do think this is a great way to do it. This will be a whole nother conversation that I will not get into, but I think in part, the way that we present ourselves digitally it's a small snapshot. We will show the best parts. We will show the funnest parts. We will show the wonderfully exciting parts. We're not going to show the worst parts.
Yeah.
So I really want to refocus that on, we have a whole spectrum and a whole continuum of life, and that's okay.
I love it. I love it.
What a perfect ending. That's okay. We all have different lives and different ways of coping. But here at Chris 180, we are here to support you. So if you feel like your coping mechanisms may be moving in the wrong direction, please reach out to us. We have a team of licensed therapists who are ready and willing to talk to you in person safely or via telehealth. We'd love to have you a part of the Chris 180 family and get the help you or someone in your life may need. As we look forward to next month, we're excited to celebrate our 40th anniversary here at Chris 180. June 8th, in fact, is our 40th anniversary, and we are excited about a campaign that's coming up. So make sure you're following us on our social media accounts to learn more about our one-day fundraising campaign called 40 for More. We want 40 for more therapy sessions, 40 for more children who get help in foster care, 40 for more training opportunities for nonprofits and civic organizations. And the help that people need in the community can be found right here. So many of you have supported us along the years, and we want to continue to be able to do that life-changing work with our team. So keep a close eye on our social media accounts over the next few weeks to learn more about our campaign and how you can help celebrate our big anniversary. Have a good week, and we will see you back here in June.